all, in Sweden, yes, of course, if you simply take population versus square mileage, it's not as crowded as Britain. But friends of mine who live in Sweden will point out that it is a very urbanized country, and that certainly in Stockholm particularly, the density of population is quite comparable to that in London. So I don't think that argument particularly works. On the overstretching of the NHS, it's very interesting. Again, I've tried to get information from people I know who work in the NHS, and what they say is that what's happened now is that so much of the NHS estate has been turned over to effectively intensive care provision that almost the whole of the rest of the NHS is not functioning at all. People are not going to hospitals, they're not calling doctors, and many things are not being done. So I'm not entirely sure what the pressure is on the NHS. One of the consequences of this is that the normal published statistics on the usage and pressure on intensive care are not being published. I think there is a reasonable, unsinister reason for this, which is, as I say, it simply isn't comparable because of the huge amount of emergency intensive care provision which has now been set up. So I think that if we did have, or could have any measure of what was going on, I'm not sure that this argument that intensive care was under colossal, unsustainable pressure would stand up. And then again, we get back to the same old point. There is still no evidence that the shutdown measures are actually affecting the numbers dying. The other thing about the British, and indeed some of the other national figures for coronavirus deaths, remains at the point originally made, again, by Dr. John Lee. What are we actually measuring? Are we measuring people who have died from coronavirus, or are we measuring people who have died who have actually been infected with coronavirus, or have been, in some cases, presumed to be infected with coronavirus? And if we are, then how reliable are these measures? As far as I've been able to discover, and I'm not a statistical genius, and I fully admit this, trying to find out the number of deaths over and above what they would normally be expected to be at this time of year on a 5-year average, it seems to be, as far as I can discover, again, about 1,000 a week. That's roughly 144 per day. Now, this is obviously tragic in every case, and to be mourned and regretted, as all avoidable and indeed unavoidable deaths are, but it's not enormous.
We will make America great again.